meeting of the Mansfield. Call this meeting of the Mansfield Downtown Partnership Board of Directors to order. Cynthia, is there any public comment?
I did not receive any.
Okay.
No.
So we've received no public comment. In your packet, item number 3, you should have the minutes from the September 2nd, 2021 meeting. Hoping you've all had a chance to go through those. If you want to take a quick minute, and then I'm happy to take a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the September 2nd, 2021 meeting.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Mario. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Great. The next item on the agenda is the Executive Director Report. Cynthia.
All right, great. Well, our big event tonight is the public presentation from the team from Street Sense. So they will be giving the presentation at phase 1 assessment. And we have right now about 60 people signed up. So I think that's a really good turnout. Kathleen and I will be doing some logistics, but really will be a Larissa and Noor show. And so I know a couple of board members have signed up. If you haven't, if you can let Kathleen know, it is basically the same presentation that you had previously seen. So we will be doing a lot, recording it. And so that will be, Kathleen will be working tomorrow morning to put that on our website, and we'll have a time period. I was going to admit Ryan, where we can get additional feedback. So I think it'll go about, an hour and a half, 2 hours probably tonight. It does take a little while to get through the presentation. Go into some breakout groups for about 30 minutes and then conclude at that point.
Will the presentation be posted someplace publicly after it's presented this evening?
Yes, so it'll be posted on our website, Kyle, and then we'll have this time period that we had discussed about when comments can come in. We did not advertise it ahead of time that would happen because we wanted to get as robust a group at the actual meeting.
Cynthia, I didn't RSVP because I wasn't sure what my schedule was going to be tonight, but I plan on being there. If you,
I think you're on the list, Kara. And
oh, okay,
Kathleen will
good.
recognize board members. She and I talked, so she'll recognize your emails.
Well, I
We
meant
just-
if you did, I didn't know if you pre-assigned breakouts. Sometimes people.
No, they haven't done that.
Okay.
Well, maybe, no, not that I know of. So that's it on the strategic plan. I did send a link to the future of Main Street retail that was put on Connecticut Main Street Center. Kathleen and I, as I think I said in my email, we thought it was very good, very interesting insights and very similar to some of the things that we're hearing from the Street Sense folks. I think since our last meeting, I know we've talked about this at a couple of other meetings, but Fresh Fork did open and getting good reviews. They have their owner is very enthusiastic, and so excited to have them. I did hear back. A couple of two of our property owners reps. I just contacted them to let them know about Halloween, because if there are some businesses that are on the cusp of opening that they may want to set up at Halloween. We had when it was called HA Cafe, which is now Eat Joy, the prior owners did that way back in whenever that was. So so I did talk to Matt Ruscani by email, and Matt is the franchisee for Brooklyn Dumplings. He did say that they hope to open in December. and look to do more of a grand opening in January once the UConn students are back. So I think I might have mentioned before, Matt was the franchisee for Moe's Muya and Wing Express, and sold those businesses here. But excited to have him be part of Downtown Stores again. Trick or treat is October 30th from 3 to 5. So Denise went right into planning that right after the festival. And we already have a couple of businesses signed up, including the Ballard. Thank you, Emily. This is definitely one of our most popular events, both for people that attend, and the businesses seem to really like it. So we usually end up with 20 to 30 businesses that participate. And Denise has some entertainment lined up, and so you'll see some more information on that soon. And then just a housekeeping thing. I know that we had previously, some people preferred getting mail packets, and we kind of stopped during COVID because everything was done virtually. So is there anybody that prefers a hard copy packet, and we can make sure that you get that? I'm seeing no hands going up, so I assume everybody's okay with the electronic version. Okay. So Kyle, that's all I had, unless there's any other questions.
Tony?
I have a couple of questions. First of all, I noticed that the engineering company that was on Wilbur Crossway seems to have disappeared. How long have they been gone?
Yeah, that was, I want to say maybe 2 weeks now. That was a surprise. And apparently it was a bit of a surprise to the leasing agent as well. So I know that some of their folks were, a lot of their folks were working from home, and some people were never there full time. So my understanding from what we were told, and Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, is they were consolidating all their business into one office in Connecticut.
Well, that's a real loss because they had a lot of space.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, second, an unrelated question. I have had some correspondence with Mary Hirsch, who was very concerned about the lack of use of the stage area on the square. And she had some fairly serious questions about our rules and regulations. And at some point, I would really want to revisit this whole issue, because it's true that it's very difficult to get access to that space as a performer. I mean, it's complicated, and there are lots of rules, and I'm wondering if both the town and the partnership could revisit this and make it a little bit more flexible. I know I remember the battle to get where we got, and I'm really hoping that maybe we can take another look and find some ways to open it up a little.
Do you want me to comment on that briefly, Tony?
If you wish.
Sure. So I heard from Mary as well, and I spoke to her, I think, twice. Ryan and Denise and Kathleen and I met about this a couple of weeks ago. And I also reached out to Kara, and so we're trying to continue to understand the UConn groups piece, because it gets a little complicated with insurance and indemnification. So it is on our radar screen. We're trying to get through the big event of the festival. I think what we, the whole point of sort of reserving space was so that we didn't have overlap with people doing that. So it is in the works. We are working toward getting more information out. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit that we weren't overly aggressive in promoting it, because we still need to work out some kinks. We've had several people approach us. Nobody's been denied to do an event. The event form is right on our website. It's pretty easy to find. And the form, I think, is pretty straightforward. But, what I told her is just, call me. I really encourage, her to call me directly.
She has some real concerns about the rules that we've established, like having full-time staff present and well, the whole panoply of rules and regulations that we have established. And it would be nice if we could take another look to see whether we really need to have all of those rules and protections and, red tape in place.
Although that's unlikely a deterrent to someone if they really want to use the space. And also be careful what you wish for. Rules exist for a reason. When something goes wrong and no one's there, we'll be equally defending why no one was there, why actions weren't taken. So it's more complicated.
Oh, I
Then,
understand. I
yeah.
understand. I shared Mary's concern that it isn't used often enough. That's part of my concern. But
I'm sure it's still COVID fallout though, honestly. I think there's still just reservations.
I mean, I will just say from the Ballard Institute standpoint, we've been able to use the space several times now. And I feel like Denise and Cynthia have been really accommodating, because of the, I know the insurance issue with UConn, and it has been nice to have Denise on site, even though I say like, oh, Denise, do you really have to be there? Inevitably something with the electrical cabinet happens and she's there to help take care of it. So from our standpoint, it hasn't been a terribly difficult process once we were able to kind of handle that insurance aspect.
And certainly, Tony, if you want to talk about it more offline, happy to do that too.
Sure. I just wanted to raise the issue because I share her concern that there isn't enough drop-in music and performance there that we had hoped for.
Anything else for Cynthia? Great. Okay, we'll move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is a discussion of a budget adjustment for the Mansfield Downtown Partnership Street Sense contract and an update on the public presentation for this evening. And Cynthia, I will turn it back to you. Unless you would like me to.
No, I'm sorry. We do have somebody who's trying to get into the meeting, so
Okay.
I just need to trying to watch that too from an email. So.
Yep.
Okay, so in your packet under item 5, so I talked a little bit about where we are with Street Sense, and in talking to Larissa Ortiz, Larissa suggested that it might be helpful to do some more outreach to the key property owner, to the 2 key property owners. We had talked about implementation and communication and how to engage more with the partnership. So she has suggested that she thought it'd be helpful if she reached out to them, possibly including me in 1 or 2 phone calls. And then if there is any additional work that comes out of what's learned tonight and for this last phase, she'd like to be able to do a complete, which she would consider a complete job. So she had estimated this at about $3,000. I talked via email with Kyle and Sean, with Sean, being the key board member on the strategic plan. And they were okay with bringing this to the board in terms of looking for a contract adjustment for up to $5,000, just to give us a little bit of contingency for some additional work that Larissa and Nor would do. So that's the background. We would again take this out of our fund balance and then and go from there. And she will know more after tonight what she feels is needed.
Anyone with any questions or?
So we don't have a number from them?
We have an estimated number of about 3,000. And I was suggesting go to 5,000 just because, I had told her, I think we don't want to, the board only meets every month, going back and forth doesn't seem like a efficient way to do things.
Cynthia, I know that Sean and I had talked about this with you a little bit, and I'm curious just to get if there's any feedback from folks on the board relative to what the actual deliverables will be. I think I've been pretty straightforward about my concerns relative to the role of the property owners and the necessity for that to maybe be really the biggest lever of change to get, for the strategic plan and the outcome to be successful. So I just want to make sure that this is more than simply, hey, if you could meet with the property owners again, that would be great. There needs to be more of a mandate of sorts, sort of this is where we believe as a board believe that the property owners need to be in assistance to the partnership and to the overall concept of the downtown, and then provide us feedback relative to, where we believe their engagement level should be. I think that's just sort of my thought. And again, I think tonight will speak to that a lot as well. Hopefully there'll be some really, really good public feedback that, and maybe the public feedback will, quite frankly, maybe the public feedback will tell us that future engagement with the property owners isn't necessary. So we could go through and approve this evening, but it might turn out to not be necessary. We may tell Street Sense after tonight that, everybody's thrilled with the property owners and we've got other things we could focus on.
Yeah, unlikely.
I'm trying to be at least a smidge optimistic.
So would this be a second conversation with the property owners with Street Sense?
Yeah, so it would be, Mario. It would essentially be laying out some of their implementation ideas in terms of, retail strategy, et cetera. So yeah, it would be, and they probably not all members of kind of their group were on those calls. So I think there were one of them. It would be nice to have, there's usually 3 or 4 from each property owner group that I guess my preference would be to get them all engaged because, there's the property owner, but then there's also the leasing agent. And so they both have obviously critical roles, and the leasing agent generally answers to the property owner because that's their boss for this particular leasing activity. So I would like them to be able to talk to the whole group from that particular section of downtown.
Would it be possible, Cynthia, for us to ask Street Sense? So if we were to move forward with this and ask them to do this, can we ask them in advance of them starting to re-engage with the property owners to provide us a 1-page executive summary that outlines their engagement with the property owners to this point and summarize what their next step would be, so that because again, I don't want to leave it open-ended, and I don't want to I want us to have a clarity as to who they've been having conversations with, and it doesn't necessarily need to be notes from those meetings, but who have they met with, when have they met with them, and who do they plan to meet with going forward, so that, again, especially to Tony's point, if it's our belief that this will be a pretty common theme this evening and going forward, I think we need to make sure that there's an accountability to Street Sense and the engagement that they've had, because at the back end of this, if we're focusing on that and them, we need to know that this plan was done and engaged with them at an appropriate level.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And we can even build what makes sense into the contract amendment.
Prabhas?
I 100% agree with Kyle. It definitely, if we were to go along with this, it definitely can't be an open-ended, no objective conversation. I think there has to be very clear objectives. And at the end of these conversations, if we go ahead with these, there should be a sense of where we are, or a sense of commitment, not just a high level commitment to work with the partnership to improve the, not just our mission statement restated, but a very clear commitment to actually achieving that and buying into the proposal by Street Sense or their findings so far, just so that we can walk away with that feeling comfortable with, and we'll have a new sense of commitment, and then Street Sense will have something to really build upon, rather than just the overarching theme that they're interested in helping us, but we don't have the clear objectives, guidelines, and what that actually means. So if we can get them to really define what that commitment and what they're hoping to get out of it is, I think I'd feel really much more comfortable with putting the money towards it.
And I can certainly try, Prabhas. I did talk to them to Larissa about that. I think they're, I don't think they wanted to, what's the word? Their powers of persuasion. They didn't want to sell themselves short, but I think there's a little bit of a middle ground there that we can get to with them.
Well, yeah, and so to that point, Cynthia, I think, tonight in this particular discussion and your memo relative to a budget adjustment, I think we can contemplate and approve that budget adjustment if we choose to. That still doesn't mean that we wouldn't want to meet with Street Sense to make sure that we feel it's worthwhile for them to go forward. So, so again, I respect completely sort of their process and to your point, their belief in their power of persuasion or whatever, whatever concerns they may have about that. But we don't need them simply to go back to the property owners and say, you need to try harder. We've done plenty of that. So, Street Sense we need Street Sense. If they're going to go back to the property owners, there needs to be a definitive goal with those meetings, not just information gathering, not just, putting our hands in a circle and saying we're going to give it our best. There needs to be a definitive.
I just want to ask, because when I looked at this earlier, I was a little confused. I know it's all kind of blended together. It's not itemized. So we're all kind of guessing here, but, and I suspect, and this is sort of an educated guess, but I'm guessing that, probably the lion's share of this proposed budget amendment is being driven by the quote unquote additional work that would ensue with reaching out to the property owners. But I guess, as worded here, I'm a little confused why adjusting the phase 1 deliverable just to basically make sure they got it right, why that's additional budget. To me, that's just something you do as part of your budget. I mean, if I pay somebody to paint my house and they miss a lot of spots, they shouldn't come back and say, well, we'll fix that for another $2,000. Well, no, I paid you to paint my house, right? So that might be nickels of this. And so or maybe it's not even really their intent based on how this is worded. I don't know. But that kind of jumped out at me as being kind of weird. We paid them for a service. Basically, they're saying, yeah, and for a little bit more money, we'll get it right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from their perspective, Ryan, the way that, this additional outreach conversations was not part of their original scope. So
and that piece of it, like, if that's what I'm saying, if that's really what we're talking about,
Yeah.
I mean, we can debate whether or not that's the right amount of money for that, but if that's new and different and over and above what we agreed to for scope, then okay. But when part of what seemed to be rolled into this is like, we're going to get some feedback and we're going to kind of correct the phase 1 deliverable, which is kind of the way this reads. It's like, that seems kind of odd that you'd be saying that's going to cost you extra.
Yeah, well, maybe that's my error, the way that I worded it, but yeah, no, this is additional work that was not
Okay,
in
all
their
right.
scope.
Thanks for clarifying.
Sure.
Anybody else with any questions or comments, or I'd happily accept the motion is in item 5, which is in your packet. And so I'm happy to accept the motion if someone would like to do the honors. Frank,
I'll make a motion to approve the additional $5,000 for Street Sense to complete phase 1 and authorize Executive Director Cynthia Van Zelm to enter into a contract amendment with Street Sense to allocate $5,000 for additional services for phase 1, but not to exceed a total contract of $56,000.
I have a second. Kara? And all in favor? Any opposed? Fantastic. Okay, Cynthia, we can, and so we can follow up on this. You can, I think you can let them know that that it was approved, but we don't need them to move forward with anything at this point. That we'll plan to obviously get Sean back in the mix on it and follow up with them.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay, so on to item 6. Which is a brief discussion relative to a proposed concept on the business of the year. Cynthia.
So on the agenda memo, we talked about this idea for quite a while ago, I guess, Frank. We sort of started this discussion because we've always had a volunteer of the year, and would it make sense to now have a business of the year so-called award as well? And so in talking with the governance committee, the question was this really fall within governance? And so I think Frank made the suggestion that this would be a possible board discussion, whether we wanted to do it, and then a board, the board would make the decision on the business of the year or businesses of the year. And so Kyle and I briefly talked about that, I think 2 weeks ago, and he wanted to get some input from the board again on the concept. And then if the board likes the concept, what would be the process moving forward to recognize businesses?
Kara?
I mean, I think as a concept, I like it. I certainly would want to understand more definition, and especially in terms of, is this only for the parameters of the partnership? Meaning, because, we don't want to also run around, we don't want to run out of people to give an award for, or make sure that the criteria either is too flexible or something no one can meet. I'm happy to explore, certainly would want more information. We only have a set defined number of businesses.
Yeah, we did, just to sort of answer your question, Kara. So when Mary was here, she did look at different towns and what they do. So we do have some examples of what other communities have done. I think the thinking for this is that it would be just in the downtown, and sort of leave the rest of that to Steve and his team with the EDC. The chambers have also recognized businesses in the past, and we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but the EDC has actually nominated some folks for the Wyndham Chamber in the past. I'm not sure. I don't think they did that last year. So with COVID and everything, but
yeah, we've got it annually. But I would have a similar concern to what was already raised. There's not a ton of businesses down there. So I would hope we would have enough. Like, I'm sure for the first year or 2 or 3 would be fine, but after that, I guess depending upon our criteria, there's not a huge pool to draw from, right? Even when it was the whole town of Mansfield, there's not a ton to pull from. So, yeah.
Tony?
This is my feral cat who has become very tame, but I hate to discourage him because I've been encouraging him to be friendly, and now he's gotten entitled. I wonder if we could do something like new business of the year. So that would sort of limit it. It would give us an opportunity to recognize somebody new each time, rather than just dipping into the same pool.
Kara?
So just back to, so is your thought that you would have a subcommittee that would put together a proposal?
Yeah.
If so, I'm happy to get involved in that. Because again, I don't think us just debating what might or might not, it's better to get it to a working group and then bring it back.
Yeah, why don't we, Cynthia, why don't we put out an email on that, get some volunteers, and hopefully get something knocked out in a couple meetings that could be present. I don't know if that would go through governance and then come to the board, or I don't know what you.
And at the top of the list would be to hear from the businesses if they even are interested. You know, because meaningless certificates are just, you know, I'd want to hear from them what they think and what they would do with the information. Is it marketable for them as a business, or?
Sure. Okay. So yeah, we can, I think, Cynthia, we can gather some folks and pull together a meeting or two, get some ideas, and then see where we land with it. Sound okay?
Yeah,
Great.
I would suggest doing it as an ad hoc group again, like we've done with other things, because remember, once we get into committees, we get into agendas, and we get into minutes, and we get into all that.
Fantastic. Okay. All right, let's move on to reports from committees. We'll start with Emily. It's going to give us a glowing and speedy recap of the Celebrate Mansfield Festival.
Yeah, the festival happened and it was great. So thank you to everyone who helped out and for everyone's support throughout the whole process. I think the turnout was wonderful. I don't know if we have an estimated count. I heard that for the concert, I think there was like 350 at one point, it was really wonderful to see the square kind of full of people enjoying the music. Funky Dogs, I think, was the perfect choice. Denise kind of pulled off, I think, a seamless event. It went very smoothly, and Kathleen picked some great acts for the main stage. So the Mansfield downtown staff just, I think, really pulled off a wonderful event. It ran very smoothly, and I think Denise reported to us today that we had 166 volunteers from UConn show up versus 77 in 2019. So the turnout for volunteers was actually a little overwhelming at first, but was great to really see UConn students get engaged as well. I think it went really well. I was at the headquarter booth and mostly saw the kids zone, which was really wonderful to see, kind of busy all day long, and really have a variety of acts going around at the festival. I don't know, Cynthia, if you have anything to add, or Kyle, anyone else who was there.
I'd just say for the Aylesworth family, fun was had by all. Looking forward to it next year.
Good.
They cleaned us out of lollipops at the partnership booth, but that was probably the only bad thing. So
Yeah, it was just wonderful to
The
see people in the town
Aylesworth
square.
family, or in general?
yes, no, the Aylesworth family. They were pocketing in so many lollipops.
Awesome.
It's gonna be whoever they're.
That's good, because actually at my office, we have chocolates and we have lollipops, and we're a chocolate group. So I will bring some lollipops to you, Ryan.
Well, based on the amount of candy that we gave out, the front runner for the first business of the year is going to be any of the dentists in Mansfield. We gave out plenty of lollipops. So, but I have to say, and I know I said this at the last meeting, freaking Denise. I mean, it was
Insane.
awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, like she never she never stopped. It was awesome. And that, you know, and Cynthia and Kathleen and Emily and everybody that was involved and down there, and the student help was fantastic. And you know, the band was great. And Dog Lane was still open when I left at 8:45, so I got a sandwich for the ride home. It was spectacular. It turned out to be a good day, but it was my first festival, and it was awesome. It was awesome. So great job by everybody. Prabhas?
I noticed two very interesting things at this festival that, in comparison to the last one we had, maybe, you know, it might be recency bias here, but I noticed one, everybody I talked to from many different parts of Mansfield all had great things to say about it. They all mentioned how great it was to see different people in the community. So we really got a really strong attendance throughout Mansfield, which was great. And the other thing that I noticed, and I thought was interesting, it seemed like we had pretty good retention, that people were there for not just 15 or 20 minutes, but when I set up at the booth at 1:45 and ran into people at 5 o'clock when I switched booths, which I just thought was very interesting. And it was definitely great to see that. So people were being involved in a lot of different things. And there were activities spread across the whole festival, which I think was fantastic planning, fantastic execution, so that people could kind of gather in one spot for a little bit and then head over. And felt like each section brought something different, which I know you guys obviously planned for, but it worked really well. And the fact that people were there for several hours really spoke to how great of a festival it was.
Tony?
I had a conversation with Eastern Highlands Health District about halfway through the afternoon. And at that point, they had already given out more than 40 flu shots and several COVID vaccines. So they were feeling that it was very successful from their perspective as well. And I think that's something we ought to consider doing on a regular basis. That was really I thought that was a significant contribution.
Great point, Tony. Mario?
Yeah, no, I mean, I echo Prabhas in that the layout and how it was set up was really good. I mean, having the kids zone in the one area and then going down and then having the little retail side mixed in, it was really very well thought out. So I thought that would be great. And to carry that forward into next year, I think the crowds even more are going to be even better. The feedback that I had, you know, during the day, which was a long day, as you all know, was that it was great to see the people back in town and to gather. I think that was a sentiment that was echoed with pretty much everybody that I had spoken with.
That's great. Anyone else?
Kyle, I would just say, Emily, maybe you said this, I was multitasking with work with this. Anyway, I don't want to make it sound like I'm multitasking doing something else. Anyway, the craft booths, so they were really happy. You know, we had a couple, I think 1 or 2 that dropped out, but Denise spoke with them and I spoke with them. And so that was something new for this year. Kind of the first time we brought in crafts and also allowed for some selling besides the food. So, so I think that's something we'll definitely continue.
Yeah, it's nice to have the variety. I think having that for an activity for people to do. And then, you know, now the kids zone, I think for me, it was interesting to see kind of just that it felt like there was a nice balance of people throughout the whole town square. Sometimes I think Wilbur-Cross gets a little bit ignored in the back there, but like, at least from my viewpoint, it was pretty busy all day long. So I think that having the variety of activities and also the nice layout really kept the crowd kind of going throughout the entire afternoon.
Frank?
Yeah, I was delighted to see the mix, the demographic mix, the townspeople, the UConn students. It was just really great to see that many multi-generations coming to the festival. So congratulations on that. It's being a magnet for the community. And also I was glad to hear about the outpouring of support as volunteers are enthusiastic. And I really think that this program is a great outlet for people who want to volunteer and get involved. It's organized so well. and you have a sense of, what your job is as a volunteer, what your role is. And that setup makes a big difference in people's satisfaction with volunteering. So thanks for all the pre-planning that went into it and making a clear purpose for it. Thanks.
That's great. Frank, Prabhas?
My only piece of something I'd like to see maybe changed, or I don't know how this, I've seen at both festivals, just the last two, just the music groups sometimes get overshadowed by maybe something that's happening on the square. So that's just something like the Yukon, like a cappella groups, for example. So I always feel bad watching that. So that's just some thoughts for next year.
Yeah, I thought just being around there for the day, the thing I know, just when you sort of walk and you just listen to people making comments, and I heard a lot of students say, I didn't know this was going to be here, which I think is good because, remember this. So this, for a lot of, not many freshmen are living off campus. So you've got a generation of kids that are living in that particular space that hadn't experienced the festival at all. And I think, I think it's something for the businesses to take away, and maybe the partnership to take away a little bit, that there is, I do think, at the right time, we're not going to want to host events at 10 o'clock at night on the weekends for students, but on a weekend afternoon, there might be even if you just roll a couple food trucks in, or you do some different things to Tony's point, use the stage, get a band on there, just something, because I think for a lot of the students, they tripped on the festival on Saturday and they were happy to, right? It wasn't at 10 in the morning because they were still sleeping. It was like right in their wheelhouse. There were a lot of students out there from 3 to 6. There really were. And they weren't just like cutting through to get to Subway or to Muya. They were walking it. They were happy to kind of check it out, something to do. So I think it's a good lesson for the businesses, and something we could pass on to the property owners too, that they're, it's okay to, you don't just have to open a storefront to engage with the residents of that particular space, that there is a willingness among them to get out and about if there are some opportunities to do that. Tony?
Yeah, this summer when I volunteered for a Frozen 2 movie, and we had these games set up on the square for children, and the women's soccer team was in town for pre-training, and they ended up staying for an hour. They played all the games. They got their pictures taken with the princesses. They really enjoyed it, and they were amazed that it was there, and they kept saying, thank you, and we're so glad you're doing this. I think they were staying in the Oaks, which is how they came upon it, but
I think Kara knows this because of the types of meetings that she's in on a daily basis and the type of work that she's doing every day. The ability for UConn and the community to provide students an opportunity to do anything other than worry about their next exam, or how they're going to pay a bill, or how they're going to, or whatever the case may be, like the ability to just relax. And so I think, UConn obviously works hard to try to do those types of things. And I really do think that that's something that us as the partnership can really, again, try to engage, provide them with something that may, to your point, Tony, seem like silly, like, oh, well, that's not our audience for that. But it's like, you know what? Our audience could be them for anything really, because they're just looking to be able to relax for an hour or 2 hours. And so that definitely was, you could just tell people were excited to be out and about and relaxing and not worried about whatever it is that they worried about during the week. So I think, as I said, Emily and Denise as the ringleaders for that. I mean, it was, I know it was an incredible amount of work, but certainly well worth it, I think, for everybody involved. So congratulations to everybody. Other committee reports, the executive committee, we did not meet. Tony, do you have any update from finance? No update there. And then Frank, governance. I know there is a.
Yeah, there's, looks like an action item, number 7. Why don't we just jump straight there? Apparently the reputation of the governance committee for enthusiasm and fun and excitement has attracted someone, and Kyle Muncy was interested in joining this committee. I think it's a sort of a fit. We talked about it at our September meeting, how the governance committee has always had the president serve as the chair of that committee. And it's good to have that sort of that continuity. So I'd ask if there's a motion for this on this action item. Listed in your packet. Tony?
I'll move to appoint Kyle Muncy to the governance committee. And also to consider revising bylaws so that the president of the partnership is automatically on that committee.
I'll second.
You got that, Cynthia? Any further discussion after the second?
I'm sorry, was that Steve that seconded?
Yes. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Awesome.
Welcome, Kyle.
Thanks, Frank. And Frank and I, part of the reason I wanted to be on, I didn't even know, but Frank and I were neighbors when I first lived in Stores. We didn't even realize. But I do, just for clarity, I mean, obviously Frank is the chair of the committee and will continue to be the chair of the committee. But I appreciate the opportunity to be able to serve on it. And unfortunately, Emily, it probably means I'm going to have to leave the festival committee. I know that I've been a barrel of laughs in all those meetings. So we'll.
Who's going to enforce Robert's Rules of Order? I don't know now.
I have my books right here. They're behind me. Don't worry. Great. Okay. So on to item 8. Any upcoming agenda items? Cynthia, I'm assuming meetings with property owners will be something we likely table for the next few meetings, especially as we let our friends from Street Sense potentially meet with them, and we can I think we can revisit that here in the next month or so, sort of what the next step will be on that. We hopefully will have some information from the property owners here soon relative to some potential new tenants and things along those lines. So we'll be sure to follow up with the property owners. And then I see the Yukon Student Consulting Group project is listed. Is there any specific update on that, Prabhas? Great. Okay.
No, just we'll be running that in the spring semester. So no updates as of yet.
Excellent. Okay. Next item on the agenda in your packet is the correspondence and communications. So a lot of good stuff. There was an addendum to that as well that Cynthia sent around, I think today or yesterday, that had some articles from the festival and some other things. So be sure to make sure that you take a look at that. So I think, Cynthia, go ahead.
Sorry, I did want to just acknowledge Evan Rodriguez and I want to apologize to Evan for some technical difficulties getting in. He has sent some comments to public comment through our MDP email. So Kathleen and I will get back to him shortly. I haven't looked at them yet, but we will get back to Evan.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, Evan. Great, Frank.
We did receive communication from Amanda Hanslick as a resignation from the board that was received. Amanda's very enthusiastic, but is has a scheduling conflict, but still wants to be very active in the winter welcome, and certainly wherever the E.O. Smith Choir can play a role, she wants to stay involved.
Anything else, Cynthia?
I don't think so.
Then, in the interest of getting Tony to her next meeting on time, I will take a motion to adjourn. Prabhas, the motion, and Frank with the second, and all in favor? All right,
Aye.
folks. We'll see some of you tonight at 7 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Have a great evening, and we'll all see you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye now.
Well.